About 550 illegal aliens have been arrested so far in Operation Midway Blitz in Chicago. Let's check it out.
And we are now in week 2 of the official Operation Midway Blitz. Let's bring in political reporter Paris Schutz now.
Yeah, Paris, tell us about what we've been experiencing. Do we know how many people have been detained as a result?
According to the Department of Homeland Security, they're saying that Operation Midway Blitz, since it launched about 2 weeks ago, has detained over 400 folks, although an AP article just came out said it was more like 550. Now, they've claimed that they are targeting violent criminals, although we know from reporting they accidentally detained a U.S. citizen near Elgin and let him go last week and shot and killed an undocumented immigrant, Silverio Villegas.
Time out. Let's talk about that for a second. What he is talking about and what he failed to mention is that this guy allegedly dragged an ICE agent with his car. That's why he was shot. So let's check this out from DHS. DHS statement on ICE officer seriously injured in the line of duty and shooting in Chicago during traffic stop. This morning, this is from September 12th, this morning while carrying out an enforcement operation targeting a criminal illegal alien, the alien resisted arrest, attempted to flee the scene, and dragged the U.S. Immigration and Customs Enforcement officer a significant distance with his car. The officer sustained multiple injuries and is in stable condition. The illegal alien was pronounced dead. We are praying for the speedy recovery of our law enforcement officer. He followed his training and used appropriate force and properly enforced the law to protect the public and law enforcement, said Assistant Secretary Tricia McLaughlin. Viral social media videos and activists encouraging illegal aliens to resist law enforcement not only spread misinformation, but also undermine public safety, as well as safety of our officers and those being apprehended. Further details, ICE officers conducted a vehicle stop to arrest Gonzalez. He refused to follow law enforcement commands and drove his car at a law enforcement officer's. One of ICE officers was hit by the car and dragged a significant distance, fearing for his own life. The officer fired his weapon. I mean, that sounds pretty reasonable to me. Let's get back to our regularly scheduled programming here.
Gonzalez in Franklin Park about 10 days ago, they say had a history of reckless driving. Now, today, Illinois Senator Dick Durbin says he's not necessarily buying the official numbers.
Fewer than 30% of those who've been arrested have any kind of criminal background whatsoever. So 70% of the people who are being detained have no criminal record. The president can rant about rape.
Stop right there. We'll get into that as well. So bear with me. We'll get into those numbers that he just mentioned.
And murderers and terrorists and criminally insane people coming in as immigrants. But those who are being arrested don't have any indication of that behavior. So if we're going to make America safe, let's put the resources into stopping criminals.
And the comments come after several days of clashes, as you saw, between a handful of protesters and ICE and Border Patrol agents. A spokeswoman for the Department of Homeland Security blamed the actions and rhetoric.
What if there was an earthquake up there in Chicago when she hit the ground?
Of Chicago Mayor Brandon Johnson and Governor J.B. Pritzker as escalating these tense situations.
It is incumbent upon J.B. Pritzker, Mayor Brandon Johnson to turn down the rhetoric because they are repeating and really turning to violence. You see them really depraved individuals who are being held in this processing facility. Why do they want them out? Why do they want them released? It makes no sense, and you're just putting Chicago residents in further danger.
And according to DHS, as you said, that facility will stay open, and we do expect protesters and demonstrators to be out there today, later on this afternoon, and most days this week as this goes on. Sylvia and Terrence will have a lot more on this on.
Well, why did this guy, we all know why he left that information out, but why would you go on TV and you just knowingly leave that information out that he apparently dragged an ICE officer with his car? You said, well, he had a history of reckless driving. Well, that's clear as day. It just makes me so mad. But we'll get into these numbers after we play what the acting ICE director said about this operation.
How many of these arrests, 500 people, how many were violent criminals?
Honestly, hundreds. So
as of this morning, we're over 550 arrests. And what ICE is doing in Operation Midway Blitz is we are focusing on those criminal aliens that have been released from sanctuary jurisdictions. And those are the worst of the worst that we're out there looking for.
So the people that you arrested, 550 in Chicago, they were criminals.
They were criminals.
They were criminals not just because they crossed the border illegally, but because they committed crimes.
No, more than 70% of the people we arrest are criminal aliens. Now, not only do they have criminal records here, some of these individuals have criminal records in their home countries that we know of, but yet jurisdictions like Chicago, like Illinois, just release them back to the streets to reoffend. That's what ICE is focused on.
That's ridiculous. Why would any jurisdiction in America, sanctuary city or otherwise, protect known violent criminals? Why do they do that?
That's what's frustrating for us is, I can give you a prime example. Within the past 24 hours, we arrested an individual that did 9 years in prison, in state prison, for multiple counts of strangulation, domestic violence, criminal mischief, violating protective orders. But yet those are the people they want to protect, right? Those are the ones that they want to oppose ICE and don't want us to take into custody. For me and the men and women of ICE, it's mind-boggling, because why would you shield those criminal aliens, the ones that are out there causing mayhem, causing harm? I mean, Operation Midway Blitz, we're doing that in honor of Katie Abraham. Young, beautiful girl that lost her life to a DUI crash by someone that shouldn't have been in our country. That's what we're focused on. And we really wish that elected officials would stand with us to go after those criminal aliens.
In sanctuary cities, they're not doing that, are they?
No.
They're opposing it.
They just make it more difficult, and they cause situations that happen like we saw, like I played for earlier, with people interfering, and citizens interfering with arrests of people who have been accused of doing these horrible things or are convicted criminals. A lot of these people are convicted criminals, and people go in there, interfere with these arrests, and cause mayhem. So yeah, crazy stuff. But I want to talk about these numbers. I'm going to read a few paragraphs here for you, so bear with me. This is from Center for Immigration Studies. ICE detentions and removals in fiscal year 2025. As noted, the period covered by ICE that the ICE dashboard ends in December 24, but other ICE statistics can fill some of the gaps. As an ICE detention management webpage links to a series of Excel spreadsheets, detention statistics which cover the agency's detentions and removals in the current fiscal year. As of late August, ICE was detaining 61,226 aliens, 76% of whom ICE arrestees, again, interior arrests, and 24% of whom came to the agency through Customs Border Protection encounters. So you have the interior, the people who are already here that they went after, and people who were brought in who were trying to cross the border. Of the 46,595 aliens currently in ICE detention who were brought the product of interior arrests, 16,669 have criminal convictions, 35.7%. 14,212 have pending criminal charges, 30%, and 15,764 other immigration violators. See, that's what they don't want you to know, is that they have the convictions, then they have the pending charges, then you have people who may have no criminal history in the country or may have a criminal history somewhere else, or they may have links to terrorism, to terrorist organizations, and they don't have any criminal records. So that's where they get that whole only 30% have criminal convictions. See? In other words, nearly 2/3 of the aliens first arrested by ICE and detained by the agency had a criminal history. Even though it may be comparing tangerines and oranges, that's a larger percentage than less than half of ICE interior arrests on a Biden involving aliens with criminal histories. That spreadsheet also shows that in fiscal year 2025, 191,393 aliens were released from ICE detention for removal, and that just less than 141,000 of those aliens were removed after February 2025, the first full month of the Trump administration. Keep in mind that those statistics are not broken down by initial arresting agency, but given that the number of illegal border crossers has plummeted since Trump's return, it's safe to assume that most of the removals came after ICE interior arrests. That's particularly likely given that of those Trump-era ICE removals of aliens from his custody, 41.4% 58,430 had criminal convictions, 25% had pending charges, and 33.5% were other immigration violators. Again, roughly 2/3 of the aliens removed by ICE and after detention under Trump too had criminal histories. Those aren't all the aliens removed under Trump, either as others received removal orders while criminal proceedings and were simply transported out for removal. During a recent trip to South Texas, I saw some of those deportations in action when I came upon a group of aliens just released from criminal custody being dropped off by ICE at a Del Rio port of entry to walk across the bridge to Mexico. Fortunately, my Spanish is not very good because some of them were neither happy to see me or had to leave. Trump administration, here we go. Trump administration says 70% of ICE detainees do not have criminal convictions, which brings me to an August 29, 2025 Newsweek article headlined, Trump administration says 70% of ICE detainees do not have criminal convictions. The article relied on the same detention management webpage I cited above. It's clear from the second paragraph, the latest detention management stats from ICE showed a record 61,226 people were being held in ICE facilities across the country as of August 29. Of course, to get to the 70% figure in the headline, you must add illegal entrance of the encountered by CBP, not arrested by ICE in the interior, into the detention total. Respectively, it's not ICE's fault that more criminals aren't coming over here illegally, not that anyone, save a select few, wants that, or that Congress requires the agency to detain more of those migrants regardless of whether they are criminals or not. This article does not include the following caveat. As of Friday, out of 61,226 detainees, 18,205 were convicted criminals, 15,593 had pending criminal charges, and 27,420 were being held on other immigration violations, reflecting normal trends for ICE detention. That, of course, raises the question of how the author defines normal trends for ICE detention. But in that vein, I'd argue that the Biden administration was the outlier in not detaining more other immigration violators ICE had already arrested than the Trump administration was for keeping them in custody. As I should know, having been an INS prosecutor under Bill Clinton, an immigration judge in a detained court under both George W. Bush and Obama administrations. An issue. There you have that. There's the information for you right there. And I just wanted to talk about that talking point of, well, only 30% of people are convicted criminals. And yes, because they're not putting together all the other data. So yeah, I'll leave that right there. Like and subscribe. I'll see you next time. Thank you. Take care.